I am, the start of Petawawa Terrace Park, Part 2B. Continuing past the end of the paved trail, and it looks like the first step in our journey is deciding whether to go left or right. Now, I haven't been down here, as I said, on Part 2A in a good couple of years, maybe even 4 of them. Well, nearly 4 of them. August 3rd weekend of 2020 was the first time I was in Petawawa area. Let's see here. Let's see what the sign says. Looks like some kind of loop. I think I will go this way. I'm trying to look for the marsh. If memory serves, there's a little bridge or something that takes you to the marsh, and you can see the Ottawa River from there. Hazy memories, because I haven't been down here in, I can now say, years. With all the water on the trail, I would have had to wear my insulated rubber boots to progress much further beyond what we're coming up to. Which means that once I get to that water point there, I might have to reverse course and take the right side branch of the trail after all. Unless you can cut through the brush somehow and... Oh no, look, there's not as much water as I thought. Good. So I'll come back when I've crossed it. That wasn't so bad. And if memory serves, this is a trail here that'll take you up to the swamp area. And I think we're getting close to the area. Ah, here we go. There's another Petawawa Terrace sign. Picture. And the hut. Alright, here we go. So another sign to look at. See? Here we go. Again, screen makes it hard to tell what I'm looking at. The only good thing in 2 days, when it's the eclipse, is I'll have both my digital camera and the smartphone. What I might do to make sure the digital camera doesn't run out of room or battery is to make sure that everything that's still on the digital camera, back to August of 22, is already backed up, and then just clear the stuff out of there. Now, I seem to remember this particular trail from the fall of 2020. Now, I'm not sure how far we can get. I do see interpretive signs everywhere, and you can see the Laurentian Mountains across the river. Alright, here we are approaching another sign. Now, the reason I'm using the pause button to be an on-the-fly editor is twofold. Number one, I don't have the room on my computer to edit it. And number two, I don't want to be filming all the time and run out of battery life or phone capacity before I get everything I want to see today. And what we're approaching is a nice view of the mountains beyond us and the entire marsh, as you can see across there. And this is the last day that you'll be able to actually see the sun. Hopefully that's a picture of it. No, this is the second last day you'll be able to see the sun at full brightness, because by now, since it's 3:10, it should be the most complete coverage of the sun by the moon. And it doesn't look, according to the weather report, as if we're going to have many clouds here in the Pembroke area to obscure our view. Those clouds will be saved for the northern Ontario instead. Now, if there's only 150 meters to go, let's go this way and see what we end up at. And if we're in the middle of a swamp and there's no trail that goes around, but I will I'll back up after we're done here, and we'll find out. And you can see in the water, new green shoots are coming up of plants for the springtime. You can see last year's dried bulrushes, which serve to protect the new green shoots that will appear this year. Oh, I get it. See? You'd have to go this way. Okay, there's the water. There's a good thumbnail of part 2. And the trail continues further on. And it looks like you approach a which birds you find here information sign. Kind of like the Carden Plain Important Bird Area sign that we saw 30 years ago in Victoria Road when we lived there. And there were actually loggerhead shrikes nesting in our very yard, and we got all the bird watchers come there one day and take a look at them, and next thing you know, any attempt to make the quarry was halted, at least for that time being, by those birds themselves. And it appears like we've reached an end. There's no more trail, as you can see. We've reached the end of the trail. So I'm going to reverse course back up beyond the cedar trees and see if I can pick up any trail going in that direction around the outer rim of the swamp, which I never did before. I'll be back when I do that, and I'll make that a separate piece, not a separate piece of the video. Don't want to run out of battery. And I don't want to have to splice it together in Movie Maker since it refuses to cooperate, so I'm just going to use the pause button as my on-the-screen editor and get all this until the phone runs out of room or battery. And hopefully I'll be able to tell which and end it succinctly before that time. Oh, and here's the other side of the bird sign, showing the other birds that you find there. Since I can't see the phone screen for the sun, not really, and a digital camera has an odd hiss still after 13 years, I will keep using this for now. Especially in 2 days. You want to get the best video coverage of the eclipse you can, and I'll use my tripod to make sure the screen is aiming at it. I read online there's some places in the eclipse, like Toronto, they slightly recalculated the path of totality, so now Toronto is just outside it again. Whereas we, here in Petawawa/Pembroke, were always at 97 or 96%, so we weren't in totality either way. I had my medical for my board and screening on that day, so I'm working till close to noon or beyond anyway, so. But I will bring my tripod, my digital camera, and my eclipse glasses to my medical appointment so that I can, so that I can be prepared in case it takes longer than expected and I can't get home before it starts at 2 p.m. And look, there is a snowy trail over there across a tiny part of the marsh, but we're going this way. I have a vague memory that perhaps I took this path as well. I can't quite recall, but it is certainly beautiful. And because of the sunlight, I can actually see it on the screen because I'm in the shadows. This is the same trick I used nearly 7 years ago. 7 years ago in June when I went to Yellowstone National Park. And they knew that Old Faithful was going to erupt around 2 p.m. And everyone was gathered on the bleachers on the far side of it. I tried looking through my cell phone at it for a few test shots before it went off fully. I couldn't see anything. So I went to the other side on the boardwalk, sat in the shadow of the pine trees that were there, and I got a much better view than I otherwise would have. You've seen that in an earlier video on Sean's Vlogs and Travels. It's either part of the Yellowstone playlist or it's part of the 2017 Road Trips playlist. I can't remember now which. I'm going to aim up there for the the blue sign, and we'll see if we circle around the river and come back towards the car that way, because I think I see what looks like a boardwalk up ahead over the river. And here's a nice unobstructed view of the marsh now that we've passed beyond the cedar trees. I am very glad I took the left side trail. It got what I needed. And as you can see, you can only go around to the right. I hope it doesn't dead end. I want to aim for that park bench. Ah, here we go. So trail closed for rehabilitation. You see that sign here. Here's the small steps you take to get to the park bench. Good. All right, here we go. And then we'll turn right. So across the little bridge, up the steps again. There's the bench waiting for us. Good, okay. And there's no other way to go anyway, so I'm gonna sit down for a moment and I'll pick this up when I start walking again. But there's a beautiful view of where we came from. All right, walking again. We're up to, what are we up to? 11 minutes so far. It's pretty good, and the phone has 34 minutes total of video room, so that's good. And there's people approaching, so I'll pause for now until we're by them. All right, I'm back again. So we're taking the trail. Yeah, that's good. We had a nice loop going. There was no other trails that went into the marsh, so we didn't miss anything by going that way. And you can see the, you know, the dead trees against the sky. That's quite beautiful. This is nice. This is April 6th today. The snow that was falling a couple days ago has ended. It's about 11 degrees Celsius today, so it's not too warm yet. We have about 3 weeks until we hit May, and then all the leaves come out and I boil until the beginning of October. But May, June, July, August, and September, I don't mind being warm for 5 months, because winters are still long, even though this winter was milder than most. I mean, my car started perfectly every time, even at the beginning of February, where last year it almost didn't, and I was worried, am I going to have to take their deal on, you know, plugging it in and paying the fee and stuff? But no, I didn't. See, the good thing about the Saint Jean apartment in Quebec, you could plug in for free. And rent was only half of what it is here. But that's inflation and everything else. So I got my apartment in the beginning of 2022. You've seen some of that from Sean's toy room, when I set up my first toy room, and Sean's model builds, where I set up my very first model building and display room, although the display of model kits and the shelves of model kits have spread beyond the room into the living room. Now, to find something I'm going to be able to afford, I will have to downgrade to a 2-bedroom when I move to Simcoe County. But maybe I can have the toy shelf spread around the living room to compensate, so I can still have Sean's toy room in some form. And of course, the travel videos don't cost anything to produce unless you actually travel somewhere. That's why my channel's become more of a vlogging channel in recent months. We're approaching another information sign, and we're coming away from the spur that led to the marsh. This one is about the Petawawa Terrace fish. Don't worry, I'll crop that later so I can view it. There we go. That should have most of it. Alright, and that's where we went. That's where we came from. And this is where we go back to get to the road that takes us up the slope back to the coniferous forest, through which you can see everything because it's technically a managed forest, and the car. So I'll take a few pictures on my way back. Shouldn't need too much video on this one because it's a return journey and you've already seen it on the way down to the marsh. And another note, author's note I guess, I will try especially if I stand in a shade tree when I'm filming the eclipse, to see if I can get a video selfie of the eclipse and still see the image of the sun on the screen as it's transited by the moon. And I will try on the screen to zoom in on the sun itself with the help of the tripod and holding it steady, because I want to get the best video possible to release on Monday evening for Sean's Vlogs and Travels. Here's another leg of the swamp. This time it's the butterfly sign. Now it only goes for a kilometer, so a bit longer than the other one, but that way we'll get all the marsh trails that we can, even though they don't seem to form a loop, and go around the swamp. And this is quite beautiful, the birch tree intertwined with the other in the middle. I'm keeping it in landscape mode because taking it in shorts mode vertically, you see those huge black bars on either side of the image, which doesn't allow you to utilize the entire landscape mode screen. So I do it this way. So I'll come back when I see something else. This is quite interesting, as in not interesting, because we got a lot better views on the other leg of the swamp. But this is a leg of the swamp that I had never explored before. It only goes off this way for a kilometer, and then it seems to end. So at least we'll have accounted for everything on this lower level for part 2B. Point here where we might not have much more of the trail to follow, or is it just taking a leftward kink? Or is it taking a rightward one? Oh my goodness. I'm going to go right so we can see the swamp from this end, and then we'll explore that left turn again. So I'll get more picture when I get closer. Thank goodness for the pause button. The digital camera doesn't have a pause button. So I would have been forced to take several short videos and then pray that the computer had enough room to splice them together. So I should be closely approaching the end of the trail as it reaches the swamp. I was hoping it would have an information sign or something as well. And look, it's getting a lot closer in here, as in the bulrushes are getting a lot, you know, winding right in next to the trail. And I have reached the true end, because now it's all water. Now, perhaps when the trail was not, when it wasn't as wet, you might have been able to walk further along that way, but there's nowhere else to go, and here's a good panorama above the bulrushes as far as I can see of what awaits us. So I'm going to go back to the trail and turn right and continue on. Now, the more I think about it, the more I realize it's actually a good idea to get into the shade of the trees in the park, just enough so that I can see the phone screen without it obstructing it, pointing up at the sun. Now I have to ask myself, when I get to the park, which direction will the sun be in? And therefore, where do I have to sit under the trees to be able to see it? Okay, well, it looks like we came out of the park, the marsh area of the park entirely, and we're now in lower level woods again. And oh, and look, there's a giant rock, as we learned in geography class with Mr. Markle, Fenton Falls Secondary School, late 90s. It's called an erratic, I believe. It just plunked there, and you can see how this is an official trail because the fallen trees are sliced off just enough to allow the passage. We're arcing our way back towards the car, at least the road that slopes us up to the car. As I was going through the trees, and through which you can't see a lot of undergrowth because there isn't much, I realized that you have to go on the actual road to have a gentle path down to the lower level. If you try to go through the woods itself, you're going to go down a steep ravine, and there's not really a trail there. But there's a neat dead tree shape. Alright, so we're up to almost 20 minutes. out of the 34 minutes of memory capacity this phone had for video, and the trail is looping around. So we might end up getting a bit of a preview of Petawawa Terrace Park Part 3, which is the upper level that heads west all the way to the Petawawa ski hill, if memory serves. So I will come back when we get closer. It's a bit of a rough section of the trail, so many tree roots, it's very difficult to tell that there is a trail here, with a few random wood boards to indicate it. Fascinating. But it helps keep you from being getting wet feet. So that's good. Again, something I don't remember at all from the last time, which means I did not encounter it the last time. And by using the route strategically, I kept my feet dry, at least on this stretch. Don't worry, I have lots of dry feet at home. Oh, and look at that neat sideways 45-degree angle stump or something right there. Well, it's something that fell over, but not completely. All right, now we're getting into some snow again, see? We're getting enough into the shadow of the woods that some snow remained on the trail. And we're slowly edging our way upwards at an ever so gentle slope. So I'll come back when we get closer. Battery or memory room first, because it sure doesn't look like a quick way to get back to the car from here. Well, I don't know how far it goes that way. That's something to test in part 3. We'll go this way, which should take us closer back to our car, and wrap up part 2 for today, because it's already 22 minutes. So, and yes, I know. This hour has 22 minutes. That's a Canadian show from the 90s. Even late 80s. It's always best to leave some unexplored for the next time. There should certainly be enough time for that, and you can see some people sitting on another one of those erratics up ahead of us. So I'm going to pause for now until I get out into more open space where I can actually see something familiar and know we're heading the right way. So here we go, another trail that'll slowly take us up into the woods. And that should work well. As you see, it's kind of zigzagging its way up now. If my memory's correct, this is the section of the woods we're approaching where it did have a downward slope into level 2 of the park. You can see the huge cliff up ahead of us and the dead tree. And so we're approaching the gently sloping trail that I'd forgotten about. It takes us back up towards the main level and the parking lot. So we did leave some unexplored, but I should still be here for another 4 months at most, so there's still plenty of time to explore more. And you can see now, I'm going to try and get a good picture. There's a good picture of the upward slope leading back to the car level. And you can see where we came from over here. I know, not much to see, although a beautiful red-ish brown surface from the dried leaves, which doesn't show up to my eye, but it certainly shows up to the camera. The camera has a more yellowish gold cast to it. Look at all the logs on the ground and everything. It's quite beautiful. It's nice getting here while the ground is mostly bare and before the heat of the summer arrives. I'm almost too warm even without the coat on. And there's some more snow on the trail. And when I see snow on trail like this, when there's no snow anywhere else, I'm reminded of almost exactly 13 years ago when I went on a trail in the Blue Ridge Mountains on my way to Peaks of Otter, and or maybe, no, I think it was there. He went right up to the summit and got a picture. We were actually above the clouds, and it switched back all the way along, unlike this one, which is just going along a ridgeline in one direction. And my digital camera got one picture before it ran out of room. It's nice to know that Petawawa Terrace Park has enough unexplored area to cover several weeks worth of videos. And with all the exploring I did on the Deep River Trail last year, it's nice to know there's something I can still get video of. And there's across the river. I just need to get better shape. Getting a bit winded going uphill. Well, you can see where we came from. Someone's approaching us from behind, but they're far down the trail. So here we are, coming up to the main level and the trees that have very little underbrush in them. You can see across the river again, and the best view is about there. And we're coming up to the bench. Now that bench right there is a landmark. We had previewed this section before, and that bench was the point at which we turned around. We went that way. Now, Petawawa Park, Petawawa Terrace Park level part 3, episode 3, will continue when we go that way. We end up to the ski hill and we loop around again. So that's a good preview of part 3, and this is the central intersect at which we'll pick it up for part 3 maybe next weekend. Because I want to go home, put all this footage on the external hard drive, do the same with the digital camera to clear out its memory, backing it all up, and then I'll have both the digital camera and the cell phone completely clear of backed up footage and pictures and ready to get the 2-hour event of the solar eclipse on Monday, April 8th. So I will see you again on Monday when I film the videos, and I will post it that evening when I get home as counter-programming to Monday Night Raw. So this is Sean from Sean's Vlogs and Travels saying welcome to spring, welcome to April, and we'll see you here next time.